Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining me this morning. If you want to follow along, we'll start the fourth chapter of the book of Ruth this morning. And as you're doing that, if you would, like, share, comment on the post. And then we will look at the first few verses here of chapter 4. It says, "Now Boaz had gone up to the gate and sat down there. And behold, the Redeemer of whom Boaz had spoken came by. So Boaz said, 'Turn aside, friend, and sit down.' And he took 10 men of the elders of the city and said, 'Sit down here.' So they sat down. Then he said to the Redeemer, 'Naomi, who has come back from the country of Moab, is selling the parcel of land that belonged to our relative Elimelech.'" Okay, where we are now is really the meat of the story of the Redeemer. We're getting into the actual redemption. And as this process plays out, again, it was a legal process that was very clearly laid out in the law as to how these things were to be handled, how things were to be done, who was responsible for what would take place here, and again the methods, and this was it all seems kind of odd to us, especially considering that we're not only talking about a piece of land, but the marriage of Ruth here is part of the equation, and we just in our culture we just typically don't handle marriages in this way, that you barter them off at the city gates. And so it is again a little bit unique for you and I to read this and study it, but it is again, as you will see, I hope, if I do my job well, that it is a beautiful picture of again our redemption through Jesus Christ. And just kind of put everything together here as we start in again to what is really again the meat of the book, the meat of the lesson. Ruth had proposed to Boaz because seeking to marry him, because he was a kinsman redeemer. He was a relative, and again, this was by law. This wasn't tradition or something cooked up in a back room. This was by law that the kinsman, the relative redeemer, was to protect both the name and the property of his close relatives. In other words, by protecting the name, whoever would be the redeemer for Ruth would have a child, and that child would be named after Ruth's dead husband, so that his name would be carried on. And so he was to protect both the name and the property, to keep the property in the family name. And again, this was part of the package. There was the property had to be kept within the family, and Ruth was, again, you may not like it, but basically the wife or the widow was considered part of the property, and so Ruth has gone to Boaz seeking to be redeemed. And again, both her and Naomi are widows, and they are would be poverty stricken because again of the culture they lived in, the male-dominated world. Very few jobs at all for women, and certainly none that would be would pay very well. On top of that, throw in Ruth is actually a stranger. She is not native to the land. She is actually a Moabite, and so she would have been looked at with kind of side-eyed. And she's a woman. She's a woman from another country. That they were in a mess. They really just didn't have a great deal of hope until now. Boaz accepted Ruth's proposal. But as we've talked about, there was a problem here, and that was that Boaz was not the closest relative. There was another man who would have first rights. He would be the first one that would be in line to redeem the property and Ruth. But Boaz here, he determines to settle this. He's going to take care of it and get it. He's going to the gate of the city, or what would that's effectively the court. The business was done by the elders at the gate, and he says, I'm going to take care of this situation. So I've mentioned this a couple times. Let me just stress this one more time as we go into it. We're learning a lot about the Redeemer system and the culture of the day, and how all that worked. And but more importantly, as we see this picture of the kinsman redeemer, is that to remember that it shows us the wonderful, great, beautiful saving work of Jesus Christ, who is our Redeemer. And so that's really it's been the subject of the whole book, but it's really comes to the forefront here in this chapter. To be that Redeemer, again, they had to be a near kinsman or relative, a close relative, somebody from the same family. And again, this was a requirement because they were carrying on the family name, was part of what was going on. They were keeping the property in the family, so there had to be a close family member. So because of that, Boaz has to be sure, just as in one sense of the word, in today's society, say someone were to pass away without a will, then possibly relatives would step up and try to claim the estate. And so we'd have to sort through and say, well, who is the closest relative to be the one who would actually be able to claim the inheritance? That's really what is going on here. And just as we would have to go to the court, register of deeds, I guess, clerk of court, probably register of deeds, I guess, they went to the city gate. And again, this is where matters were settled in that time. They were kind of combo city square county courthouse that went on at the gate. Everybody gathered at the gates, and that's where business was conducted, all types of business, property exchange, those kinds of things. The actual city officials would be at the gate so that people could come to them. Businessmen would meet at the gates and do their business at the gates. Certain types of court trials would be handled at the gate. And so Boaz goes there. And he gets there, and he sits and waits, and he's hoping to be able to get this matter settled. And as he sits there, it says the Redeemer, the other relative, the one who is actually first in line, does come by. And when he does, Boaz invites him over and says, let's talk. And then he asks 10 other men, 10 of the elders of the city, to come and be witnesses to what is about to take place, so that there could be no question. And as he presents this information, he says, we have an issue here. There is a woman named Naomi who has a piece of land that needs to be sold. She's broke. She's a widow, and she needs to be taken care of. and we need to do something, and so this piece of land needs to be redeemed. It needs to be kept in the family, so it doesn't get sold off to somebody else. Now he says, here it is, and then he says, do you want it? He says, you're first in line, I'm second in line. Do you want, one of us needs to step up and do our lawful duty. Well, the man, he says, it's got to be done by one of us. It's got to be done by a relative. It's got to be done by somebody close to a close relative to her. And it needs to be handled quickly. And the whole issue here that as we begin to see this story play out and understand and see it related to again our Redeemer is there was one key piece of this. This Redeemer had to be willing. If this man was not willing to redeem the property, then it moved on to somebody else to take care of it. He had to be willing to rescue, to redeem his relative from trouble. And so we see the first parallel between Christ and the Redeemer here in the book of Ruth, and that is that he was willing, that he gave himself. No one took his life from him. They didn't. No one made him give his life on that cross. He willingly chose. He set his mind, is actually what one passage in the New Testament says. That he purposed, he focused, he was driven to move towards that towards the cross for the sole purpose of redeeming you and I. There was no benefit to Christ from the cross. There was nothing it did for him. He was willing to go to the cross for you and I. And as you think about that, if you just as you let that thought sink in for a moment, I suppose there are situations where something may be happening, and in the spur of the moment, somebody may, jump in front of a bullet or something, or risk their life to save somebody else. But this was a willing, conscious decision that Christ made, this Redeemer has to make, to rescue this one in need. As you go through today, I want you to keep in mind, Christ loved me so much that he was willing to give his life, not have his life taken from him, but give his life for me. If it doesn't bring a tear to your eye, put a little pep in your step, something that has no effect on you, I don't know what would. Think about it. You have a good day. We'll see you here tomorrow morning.